Welcome to your daily dose of sci-fi adventures. New stories dropped every single day. Smash that subscribe button and ring the to help us reach 1,000 subscribers and unlock even more epic cosmic tales. The research vessel Aegir's Eye drifted at a standstill on the glassy surface of the North Pacific, its hull rocking gently with the swell. Above, a slate-gray sky pressed down, promising rain by evening. Below, more than 2 miles of water stretched into darkness. For Dr. Elena Sorensen, chief exobiologist of the Oceanus Initiative, the tension in the air was almost tangible. She tightened the straps of her immersion suit and ran a hand through her dark hair, already damp with salt and anticipation. Just over the side, called Lieutenant Marco Reyes, the Nereid's pilot, from the Moon Pool Bay. The small submersible, hung by 3 stout cables, its streamlined titanium frame coated in antiseptic white paint. Elena took a deep breath and slid down the gantry ladder, each step sending a clank echoing through the vessel's steel skeleton. At the bottom, the hatch of the Nereid gaped open like the maw of some deep-sea leviathan. Inside, banks of instruments and gauges glowed, casting a soft green light across the cramped cabin. 2 seats faced forward. A third bench along the starboard wall held storage crates brimming with sampling tools and sensor pods. The air smelled faintly of ozone and machine oil. "Elena, you look like you're about to give a lecture," Marco teased, his eyes dancing with both mischief and reverence. He slid into the pilot's seat and ran a hand over the tactile controls. "Trust me, once we're down there, all nerves turn into pure excitement." She managed a small smile. I know. It's just unprecedented. A starship at 8,000 meters depth, nothing in any archive comes close." She joined Marco at the controls, her fingers hovering over the touch-screen displays. Each screen showed a different slice of the abyss: sonar mapping, external camera feeds, and real-time hull integrity. "Check the clamp tension on cable 2, she added, flipping a switch. A soft beep confirmed the clamp was secure. "Tension's good. We're clear to launch." Above them, engineers slotted the cables into the Aegir's Eye's winches and began the slow release. The Nereid hummed to life, its thrusters edging it beyond the vessel's shadow. Through the viewport, the water shimmered under the afternoon light, filtering through in pale green ribbons. Then the surface fell away, and the world turned to twilight. At 500 meters, schools of lanternfish glowed like drifting stars. At 1,000, bioluminescent tendrils wove through the water like living lace. Every bump and throb of the cabin reminded them that the crushing pressure beyond would be nearly 800 atmospheres. Elena's stomach fluttered as the depth gauge ticked downward. "Depth, 2,000 meters, Marco reported in his calm, steady tone. His hands danced over the controls, adjusting ballast and thrust. Hull temperature holding steady. "No leaks." "Good," Elena whispered, more to herself than to him. She activated the external lights, for high-intensity beams cut ribbons through the darkness, revealing towering basalt cliffs and the skeletons of long-dead creatures clinging to rock faces. Occasional vents spewed mineral-rich plumes, but most of this deep-sea realm lay silent and immense. Frozen cathedral beneath the waves. At 5,000 meters, the Nereid encountered its first anomaly, a patch of rolling sediment, as if a colossal foot had scraped across the seafloor. The sonar image on the console resolved into a smooth, curved surface far too regular to be natural. "Elena, look at this," Marco said, swiveling the helm camera toward the side window. There, just beyond the reach of the lights, lay a hulking form encrusted with stonefish and tube worms. Long, graceful ribs fanned out in a pattern that made Elena's breath catch. It was symmetrical, too precise, too elegant for any terrestrial submersible. "It's a ship," she said, voice hushed. Even her translator device, pinned to her suit, pulsed in confusion, desperately trying to cross-reference unknown alloys and unfamiliar design schematics. "Not a submarine," Marco added. This is something else," the Nereid hummed as it edged closer. The hull material, though encrusted, still shone faintly beneath the sediment at dark, iridescent alloy that shifted between violet and silver in the sub's lights. Strange glyphs, carved deep into the plating, traced along its surface like runes. Elena's heart thudded. She activated her external manipulator arm and clipped on a sampling probe. "Seal the hatch. Prepare for Eva," she said, steadying herself. Marco nodded, throttled back the thrusters, and sealed the sub's hatch with a pneumatic hiss. The cabin lights dimmed as external brightness flooded in, illuminating the alien vessel in haunting clarity. Outside, Elena emerged into water that felt impossibly heavy against her suit. Each fin kick propelled her forward in 3-second arcs. As she floated through the hatch the Nereid had punched into the ship's flank, a cloud of silty water billowed outward, revealing an interior lit by soft violet luminescence. The corridor walls were lined with panels hexagonal in shape embedded with crystalline filaments that pulsed gently. The floor beneath her boots felt unnaturally smooth, as though molded from living stone. Ahead, a wide junction opened into a vast chamber, and far above, she could just make out more of the alien glyphs, glowing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. "Marco, I'm seeing infinite corridors," she whispered into her comm. "And the pressure readings, it's stable. Somehow, this ship's interior is perfectly sealed." He responded, voice tight. "I'm feeding the visual feedback to the Aegir. You're live. Everyone is watching." Elena took a tentative step toward the chamber's center. Strange sea creatures, jellyfish-like organisms woven from crystalline tendrils, drifted along the walls. As one brushed against her suit, it dissolved into motes of violet light that scattered like sparks. She watched, mesmerized. As they vanished into the gloom, a low mechanical hum began to resonate through the hull so faint she almost questioned its existence. Then the glyphs along the walls flared brighter, their pulses quickening in unison. Elena's comm crackled. "Elena, data spike," Marco said, urgency in his voice. "Your suit's transcribing every pattern. Your heart rate's up." She froze, racking her brain to process the sight before her. An immense atrium opened out like the ribcage of a colossal beast. Beyond, corridors branched into darkness, beckoning like starlit paths. And overhead, she sensed something vast, something waiting. "Entering the atrium now," she murmured. As she passed through the threshold, a sequence of symbols unfurled across the far wall in luminous script. "Children of the Blue World, welcome to the Warden's helm." Elena's breath caught in her throat. The translator device hiccuped, an alien voice emanating from its speaker. "Your arrival has been anticipated. The convergence begins." She steadied herself on a support strut, every sense aflame. Below, the ocean's crushing weight. Humanity had stumbled upon a relic of a civilization that had traversed the stars. And now, as the Nereid's cameras captured every quiver of alien script, Elena Sorensen knew that the questions they would face in the hours to come would redefine humankind's place in the universe. "Marco," she whispered into her comm, awe and fear warring in her voice. "We've just crossed the threshold of everything we thought we knew." The moment Elena crossed the threshold into the atrium, the air itself seemed to hum with dormant power. The chamber yawned open around her, an immense, cylindrical hall easily 30 meters in diameter and at least twice as high. Violet light poured from crystalline veins embedded in the walls, casting fractured rainbows across the polished floor. The sound of her own heartbeat pounded in her ears, amplified by the rigid stillness. "Holy," Marco's voice crackled through Elena's. "Come," breathless. "This place, it's monumental." She floated a few inches above the floor, the sub's reduced gravity giving her each movement an ethereal grace. Around the circumference of the hall, 30 alcoves were recessed into the walls, each framed by hexagonal panels and faintly glowing glyphs. Within them hovered orbs of light data cores. Elena realized, their surfaces rippling with the same violet luminescence that lit the chamber. "Dr. Sorensen to surface," she spoke into her comm. "We've made contact with an archive. Prepare to receive data transmission." Below, aboard the Aegir's Eye, the feed went live to every major scientific outpost on Earth. This wasn't just a discovery, it was history rewriting itself. Elena switched on her translator device. Its small speaker crackled as it attempted. First one translation matrix, then another. The alien runes above each alcove flared briefly, as if impatient. Finally, a clear tone rang out. "Behold the memory of those who came before. Know our triumphs and our follies. Choose wisely." Her heart leaped. I'm getting fragments. The language is complex, but this chamber is clearly an archive. I count 30 data cores. She drifted closer to the nearest orb, extending a gloved hand. As her fingertips brushed its surface, the core began to spin, projecting a three-dimensional hologram of a starfield above the center of the chamber. Thousands of tiny lights pulsed into focus, planets orbiting distant suns, each labeled with script that twisted and looped like living vines. Elena's eyes widened as the projection zoomed in on one System 3 habitable worlds, their surfaces dotted with circular green patches that grew and receded in rhythmic cycles. These aren't just maps, she murmured. They're timelines, echozones, terraforming progress. She tapped her suit's HUD, freezing the starfield and overlaying layers of data, atmospheric compositions, biosignatures, radiocarbon readings. They seeded life across galaxies. Look at this one, Arctelia Prime. Flora emerges at year 12. Avian species at year 18. Civilization at year 75. Marco's voice sputtered with awe. They were gardeners of worlds. As the hologram faded, another orb detached from its alcove and drifted toward Elena, the glyphs along its surface rearranging themselves into a single phrase. We fled the dying light. Her brow furrowed. Fled the dying light. Could this ship be a refugee vessel, a generational ark carrying the last remnants of their civilization? She turned to explore deeper. Two corridors branched off left and right, their entrances flanked by statuesque pylons carved in the likeness of winged beings, guardians, perhaps standing vigil with swords lowered to their feet. Each pylon was crowned with a cluster of the glowing crystals, their pulses slowing to a near heartbeat. Elena, sensors detect organic matter, Marco warned. Something's moving at the far end of the left corridor. She nodded and drifted toward it, every sense alert. The corridor narrowed, the light dimming until only the violet glow remained. Then she saw them, delicate, jellyfish-like creatures, adrift in the low gravity, their umbrella-shaped bells made of translucent crystal filaments. When one drifted close enough, Elena's sensors recorded a surge of electromagnetic energy, tiny bursts of data transmitted through bioluminescent flashes. Without warning, a cluster of them converged around her suit's visor, their filaments brushing the glass. Elena froze. For a heartbeat, the creatures shimmered, then dissolved into spark-like motes that scattered and vanished. She swallowed hard. These life forms, their sentient interfaces, she whispered, their biological data conduits. On her HUD, her translator began interpreting the flashes. We are the voices of memory. We speak for the lost. A thrill ran through her. They're guardians of the archive, living memory banks. She backed away respectfully, wary of overstaying her welcome. Ahead, the corridor opened onto a small chamber dominated by a circular dais. At its center floated the largest data core, yet twice the size of the others. Surrounding it were holographic panels showing an enormous sphere, a star in its final moments, its corona pulsing violently. Elena's breath caught as the sphere erupted in an array of purple and silver streams, matter cast off in a violent supernova. Constellations shifted as the light washed across galaxies. Beneath the projection, script scrolled automatically, translated word by word on her HUD. We perished to preserve our seed. Here lies the last Evangelion. She floated closer, entranced. The last Evangelion, the final arc. They destroyed their civilization to save their essence. Suddenly, the core's projection snapped off, and the days beneath it began to descend. Elena's calm chirped urgently. Hull pressure rising. We're picking up a change in the ship's internal environment. She steadied herself as the days reached the floor with a soft thud. From its center, a crystalline chrysalis unfurled, petals folding back to reveal an opaque egg-like form. It pulsed with violet light, each beat resonating through Elena's ribcage. Marco, she whispered, voice trembling. There's something alive in here. Get back to the near-eyed, he urged. Now, Elena hesitated, her gaze locked on the chrysalis. No, I need to. A tremor shook the corridor. The violet crystals along the walls flared to blinding brightness, then dimmed to a slow, steady glow. The translator device emitted a final message. The last seed awakens. The convergence is at hand. Elena's world spun. The weight of what she'd discovered pressed on her like the ocean above an immense responsibility. She had touched the memory of a civilization that had spanned galaxies. She had seen their pride, their hubris, their final hope. She turned and began to swim back through the corridor. Data cores and bioluminescent guardians trailing behind her like a silent escort. Every pulse of violet light echoed in her mind. The last seed was waking, and already its dream was reshaping the ship and perhaps reshaping Elena herself. As the Nereid's hatch sealed behind her with a hiss, Elena clutched her translator device to her chest. Outside, the dark water awaited. Inside, a new chapter of human history was unfolding, one written in starlight and crystal, and carried on the breath of a civilization long lost to time. The moment the Nereid's hatch sealed, Elena's mind buzzed with a dozen half-formed questions. She floated in the cramped cabin. The weight of the crystalline chrysalis pressed gently against her chest. Marco locked down the manipulator arm and began replaying the influx of data cores on their consoles. "Elena," he said quietly, "we've got what looks like an entire civilization's worth of knowledge and a living artifact that's awakening. What now?" She pressed a hand to the chrysalis's smooth surface. A warm hum emanated from within, synchronized with her own pulse. "We learn," she replied, voice trembling with exhilaration. "But first, we need to stabilize its environment. If that thing hatches here, we could damage it." "The ship designed that chamber specifically." Marco nodded, fingers dancing over the control panel. Starting, he tapped a sequence. Environmental lock. Oxygen temperature. Gravity regulation going live. The cabin lights dimmed as the Nereid diverted power to the life support override. Gauges blinked green. Elena exhaled. "Good. Now, let's see what those cores tell us about this seed." She keyed a sequence into her suit, streaming the largest core's data through her neural interface. The world around her shimmered as data overlaid her vision. Star charts, genetic sequencing patterns, ecological blueprints. Every breath she took brought a fresh wave of information: sonic logs of the ship's engines, architectural schematics of alien cities, even personal logs, fragments of voices from a civilization undone by a dying sun. "Listen to this," she murmured, replaying an audio clip. A melodious voice, deep and resonant, recited lines in the alien tongue, then paused, as if searching for the right translation. The translator device rendered it haltingly. "Child, mother, we soughed the cosmos with possibility. We fled when the star's death flame crept too close. We sank this vessel beneath the waves to guard our legacy until a worthy hand could claim it." Tears pricked Elena's eyes. "They saw us coming. They left instructions. We weren't meant to find it accidentally. They wanted someone to choose it." Marco's eyes held wonder. "But why ocean? Why sink it here?" Elena shook her head. "Perhaps because water was rare on their home worlds. Maybe they believed that life must rise from the deeps like this chrysalis. It's symbolic." She turned, drifting to the viewport. The alien ship loomed in the distance, its violet veins flickering as if alive. They became specters in the void, and water was the essence of their renewal. Here, in the ocean's cradle, no nation could claim dominion. It was neutral ground. A sudden tremor rocked the submersible. Alarms pulsed red. Marco grabbed the console. "Hull breach, but it's internal down by the aft section." Elena's heart slammed. "That's where we access the second corridor, the one with the living guardians." She swam toward the hatch controls. "Hold us at this depth. I'm going back inside." "No," Marco protested. "We need to contain the seed." But Elena was already suiting up. "We can't leave it adrift. If those guardians are active, they might protect it. We need to understand their behavior." Seconds later, the Nereid docked again with the ship. Inside the corridor, violet light throbbed ominously. The hexagonal panels shuddered as though breathing. Elena advanced cautiously, tracer lights scrawling across the walls. The jellyfish guardians drifted around her, their crystalline bells pulsing faster than before. Suddenly, one guardian darted toward her, then recoiled, as if startled by her presence. Its filaments wove a pattern and invitation. Elena laid her hand against the wall glyphs. The entire corridor lit up in response. Symbols cascaded in fluid motion, histories of migration, of starships fleeing supernovae, and of a final pact to seed new worlds. She watched fragments of memory play out like ghostly echoes, ancient leviathans that swam through star clouds, civilizations built on floating continents of crystal, and the dying sun tearing itself apart. Her suit's HUD translated a phrase that resonated deep in her chest. We became the seed, and the seed shall become us. Elena staggered back. The Guardians drifted closer, their voices interwoven into a chorus of memory and warning. Then, an unfamiliar glyph lit up at the corridor's end like the crest of a door. The Guardians surged past her, guiding the way, heart pounding. She followed. The corridor opened into a chamber etched with star maps spanning eons. At its center, a pedestal bore a crystalline chalice, its contents swirling with violet motes. Above it, an alcove displayed a final testament, a holographic tableau of a world being reborn, a barren orb, bathed in violet light, sprouting crystalline forests and seas of liquid silver. Elena pressed forward. This is their plan. For the seed, the translator device flared. Take the chalice, drink, rebirth will begin. Choose your brothers and sisters well. She hesitated, the weight of the decision heavy upon her. Behind her, the Guardians lingered, expectant. Her comm crackled. Marco, do you read me? Her voice was distant, reverent, loud and clear. He replied, but what are you doing? Elena closed her eyes for a moment, recalling her world, the desiccated plains of Earth's dying farmlands, the deserts swallowing once fertile valleys, the polar caps melting into rising seas. She pictured refugees fleeing wars over water, species teetering on extinction. She thought of the fragile hope that the seed could bring, tempered by the hubris that had destroyed its creators. She turned back to the chalice and extended a finger. The violet liquid rippled. I choose stewardship, she whispered, voice firm. She dipped a fingertip into the fluid, letting a single mote dissolve on her skin. The chamber trembled, the hologram flaring to life in vibrant color. The Guardians pulsed with joy. Then Elena felt a surge of knowing, weaving through her veins, binding her to the ship and its ancient dream. She opened her eyes to see Marco's surprised face on her HUD. Are you? He began. She placed a hand over her comm. Hold on, Marco. Things are changing. The corridor walls pulsed around her, the ship's AI awakening in full voice. Rich and resonant, we are one. The past and future converge. Guide the seed to light, or the light will consume. Elena stood at the nexus of two civilizations, one lost to cosmic fire, the other teetering on the brink of its own. With the Guardians as her witnesses, she whispered, we will temper creation with mercy. And as the ship's violet heart began to beat in harmony with hers, she knew that the true trial was only beginning. The hum of the Nereid's engines was a distant memory, as Elena Sorensen stood within the alien starship's grand atrium, the crystalline veins in the walls pulsing in perfect unison. With her racing heart, behind her, the jellyfish Guardians, ethereal, translucent forms of living crystal, hovered like sentinels of an ancient temple. In her arms glowed the violet chrysalis, now transformed into a translucent orb of pulsating light, the last seed of a civilization that spanned the stars. Outside, through the viewport, the Aegir's Eye and its international flotilla of support vessels drifted on the Pacific's glassy surface. Across the globe, billions watched the live feed, riveted by each flicker of alien script, each glimmer of crystalline life. Governments whispered of weaponization, philanthropists dreamed of terraforming Mars, corporations salivated at the prospect of mastering the ship's FTL drives. Fanatics called it a miracle, skeptics a hoax, but none could deny that humanity's fate teetered on a razor's edge. A soft chime echoed through the atrium, as the ship's AI, its presence woven into every crystal, spoke through Elena's translator device in a voice that was both mechanical and profoundly alive. Child of Earth, the seed awaits your will. To plant unleashes creation, to withhold ensures oblivion. Choose now. Elena exhaled, steadying herself. She knelt beside a circular dais rising from the floor, its surface etched with the twin symbols of birth and finality. Before her lay two chalices carved from the ship's own crystalline matrix, one filled with swirling violet motes of potential, the other empty. its rim etched with runes warning of dormancy. Behind her, Lieutenant Marco Reyes' voice crackled. Through her calm, tinged with anxious pleading, "Elena, you have to decide. External teams are waiting. Some are already deploying submersibles to breach the hull. We don't have much time." She closed her eyes and saw visions of what might come to pass. She saw planets reborn, deserts blossoming into forests, arid moons transformed into jeweled ocean worlds, dying stars harnessed to power new civilizations. Yet she also saw worlds overrun crystalline jungles that strangled native life oceans, boiled by unchecked energy harvesters, entire solar systems consumed in the seed's growth. "Marco," she whispered, "this isn't just about science or profit, it's about stewardship." She opened her eyes and rose, the chalice in her hand alight with violet potential. The Guardians drifted closer, their bells chiming in sympathetic resonance. Below the days, holographic panels flickered to life, displaying a third hidden option: transmit knowledge awaiting worthy wielders. A triangular glyph linked the two chalices, suggesting a divination neither to unleash nor to suppress, but to share. Elena's mind raced. To share the technology allowing Earth's leaders to choose who might wield it. Trist political, infighting, and catastrophic misuse. Yet to unilaterally decide to withhold the seed would condemn countless worlds in need. To unleash without guidance could doom her own planet to the very hubris that destroyed the seed's creators. 1,000 voices clamored in her head, each a fragment of the archive's memory. Then she heard the voice of the ship's AI, gentler, now almost maternal. "Wisdom lies not in choice but in circle. Guide the circle. Broaden the circle." Elena's breath caught. The ship proposed a council, a temporary covenant of humankind's best scientists, ethicists, diplomats, spiritual leaders empowered to steward the seed's deployment under a framework of checks and balances. The plan: transmit the knowledge of the ship's archive to Earth, but allow the seed itself to be released only under collective guardianship. Its energy matrix would remain dormant until activated by a quorum of designated stewards. She looked down at the chalice and then at the empty one. Gently, she poured half of the violet motes into the empty vessel. The two chalices glowed in tandem, linked by a filament of crystalline light. The Guardians exhaled a chorus of chiming tones that resonated in her bones. Double quotes Marco, "Initiate the data uplink," she said. "Transmit the archive's core directives to every major scientific and governmental node. Prepare a secure quantum channel authenticated by multiple signatories to coordinate a global stewardship council." "Acknowledged," he replied, relief washing through his voice. "Uplink in progress." Outside, sensors registered a spike in the ship's power grid. Transmissions flickered across the Pacific, arcing into orbit and down to every inhabited continent. In labs from Tokyo to Timbuktu, screens lit up with alien schematics, environmental protocols, ethical guidelines, biosphere compatibility matrices, and fail-safes requiring unanimous approval from the appointed council. As the data cascaded into Earth's networks, Elena spoke once more into her translator. "The seed shall awaken." Guided by many hands, protected by a common vow, the ship's crystals blazed in approval. The Guardians, now more numerous, surfaced into the atrium, weaving circles of light around Elena and the chalices as if consecrating the moment. From the days, a panel slid open, revealing a small hatch. Within lay a secondary capsule, a failsafe, designed to retract the seed's power should the stewardship vow be broken. Elena activated the capsule with trembling hands. It hummed, sealing itself as an insurance against future misuse. She then lifted the chalices high, their violet motes coalescing into a shimmering sphere above her palms. With a final nod, she tipped the chalices, merging their contents. A wave of crystalline energy rippled outward, bathing the atrium in a cascade of violet light. The junction points between each corridor flared brightly, and the ship itself seemed to awaken, its hull vibrating with newfound life through the cargo bay viewport. Elena watched as the chrysalis disengaged from the control days and drifted. Free, it floated toward her, then passed through the hatch into the Nereid's cargo hold. Now converted into a secure incubation chamber, the hatch sealed, and gentle life support systems tuned by the archive's guidelines took over. Status? Elena asked, voice echoing in the chamber. The seed is stabilized, Marco reported. It's biochemically active but contained, and the Ooplink everywhere received it. There's already talk of forming the council, Elena allowed herself. A small, exhausted smile. Then we've done it. We've honored their legacy. She turned to the Guardians, their chalice-like bells dimming to a soft glow. Thank you both for your wisdom and your vigilance. They drifted away, dispersing into the corridors as each hexagonal panel glowed once in farewell. The ship's AI spoke its final blessing. The past and future unite. New worlds AWAIT. Go forth as guardians of life. Elena pressed her hand to the chamber's observation window, watching the violet seed swirl gently in its containment field. Below, the Pacific's surface reflected the evening sky, stars emerging one by one. Far away, Earth stood poised at the dawn of an unprecedented chapter, its inhabitants bound by a promise to steward, not conquer, to heal, not destroy. As the Nereid prepared for ascent, Elena whispered into the silent depths, we will not fail. You, and in that vow, the last echoes of a civilization long lost found their truest resonance through the hearts and hands of humankind, ready to write a new legend among the stars.